Well, here we are getting ready to return to the busy time of the year. That's right. It is back to school time, time for our regular fall routines. It's a busy time for parents. It can be a stressful time, also exciting. And I would say that faith-based parents, Christian parents, want their children to grow up loving God as well and know that they're supposed to disciple their kids through this crazy time of year. But life gets obviously insane, and maybe not everyone feels equipped to do this. And if that's you, our guest has some help. She's got some pointers here. So joining us from Edmonton is Christie Thomas. Christie, welcome. Actually, you're from Sherwood Park, you mentioned, so the Edmonton area. And you are the author of Little Habits, Big Faith, How Simple Practices Help Your Family Grow in Jesus. Okay, great to have you with us today, Christie.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so what sparked you to write a book like this? Is there a personal connection with this?
Absolutely. Well, I was working in children's ministry for many years, and I realized when I had my own kids that discipling my own kids was a very different thing than running a children's ministry program because you don't need these big lesson plans, and that's kind of what I was trying to do at home, like these big fancy lessons, and I thought this isn't working, and I realized that it's really comes down a lot more to the little habits that we put into our days. So I struggled through trying to find things that worked for us, and lots of things flopped, and I thought, what's going on? And and I would get busy and distracted, or my kids wouldn't be interested, and all these things wouldn't be working. And eventually I realized that the answer to all of my problems was just starting with little things, embedding them into my life in natural ways, in places that actually fit for my family, and then just starting them small and letting God grow the fruit, which is really what it talks about in the Bible, is that we bring our little to God, we bring our weakness, and in our weaknesses he is strong. We don't have to do all the things or know all the things in order to be good Christian parents. We just start small and let God grow the fruit.
So where does a parent start with trying to get kids to develop good habits, especially when summer routines change into fall routines? You write about keystone habits.
So I would think of like something that is really important in your day, that where you're already with your kids, and a time when a keystone habit is something that is usually very tiny but has a kind of an outsized impact on your life. So perhaps when you're sending your kids off to school for the day, so you're either waiting for the bus with them or you're driving with them to school, that's a really pivotal moment when you can be doing something that is shaping them. And it doesn't have to be a lot. You could just pray a blessing over them. There's a blessing in the book of Numbers that everybody's heard. There's even a song about it, that may the Lord bless you when. You could pray that one over your child as they're walking out the door. You could pray for their day quickly as you're driving on the way to school. Just something very simple that gets into your day and becomes a habit for you and your kids. So it's not something that you have to think about all the time anymore. It sort of just becomes who you are.
Yeah, and is that the best way to kind of train your kids to develop these keystone habits?
It is, because what happens is it just becomes embedded in their identity. Well, what do we do when we walk out the door? Well, we just pray. Or or when we're driving to school, we pray. It becomes something that you honestly can't really l- live without. And then as they get older, they're going to remember that. That's still going to be part of them. They're going to be driving to work and thinking, I just want to pray right now. I don't feel the need to turn on music because it's just sort of deeply embedded in who I am, that we just pray in the mornings, or we read at the breakfast table, we read the Bible at the breakfast table. And so it becomes part of who they are.
Yeah, these are obviously very different habits, more spiritual habits than just like the regular habits of planning homework and making sure you have your lunch ready the night before for, going to school. So is regardless of what the habit is it helpful to reward your kids for developing good habits?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I would say that if you really want them to develop good habits, you need to reward them more in the moment
Hmm.
than kind of in the long term, like, okay, if you do this for 20 days, then I'm going to reward you. So Dr. BJ Fogg, he's a professor over at Stanford, and he talks about, I learned so much about habit formation from him. So his is a great
Hmm.
book to read, kind of more about general habits.
Mm-hmm.
And his book is called Tiny Habits. And he talks about the importance of celebrating every time you do the thing that you're trying to turn into a habit. So if your child does their homework as soon as they get home from school, you want to reward that right away. Hey, good. And it doesn't have to be like, let's go out for ice cream. Like, It can just be high five, you did it. We want to do something that makes our brains feel good immediately so that the next day we want to do the same thing over again. And it becomes less of a chore and more of something that we just do.
Yeah, no, exactly. How do you carve out time in your day for doing these type of activities with your kids? I mean, you're kind of explaining that it's not really something you carve out. It's just a as you're going, right?
You still do have to be intentional about it though, because I mean, if you aren't at least at the beginning kind of planning, okay, well, I'm gonna pray for my kids as I go out the door. I'm gonna bless my kids just before, I tuck them into bed, or we're gonna read the Bible at supper time or something. If you want to do those things, you do have to be intentional about it first. But the best way to actually make it happen is to start it with really small, a really short blessing, really short prayer, really short reading from the Bible or a devotional. Don't try to go above and beyond because it won't stick.
hmm What if you have a child that has trouble sitting still long enough to do these type of activities or can't pay attention? So we're talking more like prayer time or devotional time or that type of thing.
Oh, completely let go of the expectation that they're gonna sit still. They do not have to sit still. Any really good teacher will tell you that. I mean, yes, there are times to sit still, but a lot of kids learn best by moving. So instead of expecting them to sit still while praying, you can pass around a talking stick or something, or throw. I have had my children throwing socks at each other. Like, it's
So
my
get
turn to
creative,
pray.
in other
I
words.
get the socks. Yeah, exactly, and then you get to pray when you get the socks. That was more when they were younger. I haven't done that with my teenagers.
That'd be
Well, that
funny.
would be entertaining. I
That would
feel
be.
like it might devolve into dodgeball really fast, though.
No, exactly. Well, especially because you have three teen boys now, right?
Yeah,
Oh boy, yes, I can imagine your household gets pretty noisy.
at times.
But Christy, in your book, you talk about the danger of being too pushy, that we can't necessarily force faith onto our kids. So, any advice on how to steer kids towards making their own faith decisions, their own choices?
I think it really just comes to down to our heart and our level of trust in God. If we are living out of fear and we're talking to our kids out of fear, like, oh, the fear that they're going to make the wrong decision or the fear that they're not going to follow God, then we are going to push in ways that are not healthy and are going to probably hurt our kids. But if we can remember that God is the one who does the hardest work in their hearts, He's the one who changes their hearts. We can't make our kids be Christians, we can't make them make good decisions, but God can work in their hearts and soften hard hearts into soft hearts. And so if we can remember his role and our role, then we're going to parent less out of fear, and we're going to not have to worry about being pushy, because most of the time we're going to be just like, okay, we're just trusting in God. We're doing our part, but we're trusting in God. And it's not going to come out in that super pushy way that kids tend to rebel against.
Yeah. So when it comes to teaching your kids about this or discipling your kids, I guess there could be viewers who might say like, "Hey, isn't it the pastor's job to teach kids about God and Jesus?" Or "I'm not equipped to do that." How would you respond to that?
Well, those are the questions that we all ask. And yes, it is, I would say it's a partnership between the church and the parents. But as parents, we have a role to disciple our kids. Like, if you look at how many hours that you have with your children, you have so many more hours than the average Sunday school teacher maybe has an hour a week if you go every week, and you have hours a day with your kids. I'm not saying every hour of every day you need to be like, on your knees with your kids. That's not realistic. But you just have so much more time with your kids. So, and kids pick up our values from us. So if we are never praying, never reading the Bible, never bringing up God, how are they going to know that this is important to us? So we want to just, in these little ways, whether it's modeling or praying with them when they're hurting, or praying the Lord's Prayer with them at bedtime or something. Those are the things that they're going to pick up on, and those are the things that make a bigger difference. I mean, there are studies all over the place that show the impact of parents. So it's not just the pastor's job, I guess, is the summary. It is also really uh, up to us to be part of that, and or doing that with our kids as well.
Christy, what do you hope readers will take home from your book?
Oh, I hope they take home this kind of dual feeling of, yes, it's our role to disciple our kids and to help them know God, but it's also not our role to force them to be Christians, because so we have a role, and the Bible talks about this, where Paul says, I planted and Apollos watered, but God made the plants grow. Like he's the one who brings the fruit in our children's lives. So we have to trust him with that. So we have a role, we got to plant, we got to water those seeds, but God is the one who's going to make it grow. That's what I hope they take from my book.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing with us today, Christie. Appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Christie Thomas is the author of Little Habits, Big Faith. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.